Howard, I had one question that I was hoping you might speak to, and that was more broadly around the role of the university in all of this. And I was hoping you could speak a little bit about how you see, or what you see are the new challenges or opportunities for the university vis-a-vis the social media revolution and some of the new changes we're seeing around digitally enabled interaction.
All right. Well, let me make a couple of distinctions here. The role of the university is to educate. The business of many universities is to be a knowledge factory. I was surprised when I started teaching university students at how few faculty were really engaging in using social media in their practice, in their teaching. I don't think it's any kind of magic bullet, and I don't think that you need to throw social media at every subject, but I know that there are all kinds of great opportunities for extending classroom discussion beyond the classroom and to enable group voice in ways that classroom discussions don't, to enable individual voice in the way that just writing a paper that only the teacher sees does not, that enables collaboration. I think there are all kinds of great things that you can do with it, but why isn't it being done to a very high degree? And the answer I got, I'm not going to name names of where I heard this, but the answer I got from someone in a position to know was, well, that's an easy question to answer. That we're a knowledge factory, and you are hired here, and you are promoted here because you publish in your field, whether that is in a philosophy journal or you are inventing a new technique for genetic engineering, or you're inventing a new algorithm or an economic theory. You're contributing to the growth of knowledge, and that's the multi-billion-dollar business that many research universities are in. And in my experience, going around talking to people, it's talking to teachers, the community colleges and the small liberal arts colleges have a much more knowledgeable, a much larger degree of knowledgeable faculty about these issues. I think when you talk about the community colleges, their value proposition is not that you're going to get the brand name or that you're going to get the social network. We're going to prepare you to get a job in the 21st century, and it's very difficult to do that without addressing social media. I think there's also another issue, which is how many of you require your students to close their laptops during class? None of you? How many of you face students who are not looking at you but looking at their laptops a large part of the time that you're in class? So, you know what? Some of those students are doing something that students have never been able to do before. They're able to do a little research and find out if you know what you're talking about. Some of them are exchanging URLs with each other. They're talking about what you're talking about. Some of them are Facebooking. Some of them are in World of Warcraft. Teachers have always had to deal with students' attention wandering. That's nothing new. We've never had to compete with the entire internet before. Also, there's some, have you heard the term flipping? People are talking about flipping and having, putting your lectures online and using the classroom for working with the students on problems. And when I meet with students for the first time, I say, why are we going to all the trouble of getting our bodies here? I drive for an hour to get to the university to meet with the students. Do you all rush home at 6 or 7 o'clock to see your favorite television show, or do you just set your digital video recorder for that time? Why don't you watch my lectures on YouTube, and we will engage with one another in the way that only face-to-face interaction affords? And then, the bell rings, class is over, we're in the middle of a discussion. Discussion doesn't have to be over. Let's continue it in the forums. reflect on your readings and reflect on them in writing in the blog, and don't just do it for the teacher, do it for each other. I think that there are a lot of great opportunities. Wiki work is very interesting because most students, they got to university by sequestering their knowledge, by competing with other students, and by performing for the teacher. And I don't think that we're really heading into a world where your work day, whatever your profession is going to consist of sequestering knowledge and competing with others and not collaborating with them. We're really not learning those skills just in terms of preparation, but I also think in terms of the role of the university, the not just the creation of knowledge, but the conversation about knowledge. And what does knowledge mean? Because only a small percentage of your students are going to go out and become university professors or become scientists and knowledge creators, but they ought to know what science and the humanities are about, and the means by which we discuss those things, and the means by which we make judgments about those things. Otherwise, we're going to end up in a situation such as America is in now, in which belief in science is no longer a majority. We're seeing a lot of the values of the Enlightenment being rolled back. We can argue about the mythology of progress, but I'm one of the people who believes that it's a good thing to know more rather than to not know more. And I don't think that we are preparing people for knowledge in a world in which the authority of the text is no longer dominant. I have a neighbor here who's got some kind of lawnmower going, so you may hear a buzz. But let me just close with talking about the authority of the text here. Is that the university really started because it was expensive to write out books by hand. They were chained to podiums, and since for the last 1,000 years, some person has stood up in front of the class and talked. That really comes from somebody reading the text to students who had no other way of doing it. And I sometimes say, if you took a soldier from 1,000 years ago and put them on a battlefield today, they'd be dead. If you took a doctor from 1,000 years ago and you put them in an operating theater today, they'd be lost. You took a professor from 1,000 years ago and put them in a classroom today, they would know exactly where to stand, what's going on. We used to trust that because somebody wrote it and somebody edited it and somebody published it, that for the most part we might disagree with what's in the text, but it's factual. And of course that's no longer the case. It's up to the consumer of information to test that information and to find out whether it's true, false, misinformation, disinformation, greenwashed information. There are all kinds of shades of not accurate information to be found online. Are we really enabling students to deal with that reality? So I guess I'll close with that. And I think that I'll mention the social media classroom. I created it simply to have an easy way for students and teachers to use forums, blogs, wikis without violating students' privacy by forcing them to use public social media and with a uniform user interface. I don't think that the technology is virtually free. Students already have their laptops. We've already got internet connections. These tools are available. The missing factor is how do you use them as an instructor, as a teacher? Do you want to use them at all? Lots of circumstances in which they're not appropriate, but there are many circumstances in which they could be very enriching to the experience. And then, how do you use them? Both as students and as teachers, the education system really has moved a lot more slowly than the technology. We're really not equipped to do that. So I'm writing a book now for publication a year from now on social media literacies: attention, participation, collaboration. If you want to be polite, you could call it critical consumption. Ernest Hemingway called it crap detection. I think that's the first one I would teach. You've got to be able to find your way through the good information and the bad information on your own to make your way today. And network awareness. Everything from understanding what sociologists know about weak ties and strong ties and small world networks to where are your privacy settings on Facebook and why should you care about it. So these things are not rocket science. They're not even algebra. It's harder to learn the multiplication tables, but there aren't really any texts. Isn't really a place in the curriculum. So I'm trying to deal with part of that by writing what I hope to be a text. I put a lot of my material online. If you search on Crap Detection 101, you'll see a video I did in which I walk students through some of the techniques for finding, for verifying information online. And I think that social media literacies ought to be taught in the high school. And by the time you see students, they ought to understand how to do these things, and that there ought to be a conversation about, if you're going to have your laptop open in class, what are you doing with it and why? So I guess I'll end on that. I've got to go.
Howard, thank you so much. This was wonderful. Quick hand for Howard, everyone. Thanks.